Um, yeah. Tonight we're gonna be talking about flow or flow state, but I'm curious. Number one, what do you know about flow? Number two, what was the pull? Like, what pulled you in this event to this event? Number one, what do you know about flow? What do you know about flow state? And number two, what was the pull? Like, what pulled you into this event? What was the curiosity? I don't know.
Okay, so about flowing relative understanding it's mind without thoughts. The reason I came to here because it reminds me something. Yeah, it reminds me something we practice in meditation on a passion version. It's a state also of relative understanding without thoughts. Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah.
I really like the movie Soul. I'm not sure if you have watched that. So that movie basically talk about flow, when you like performing, like doing jazz or playing instrument, like you have to be in the zone to fully in it. Yeah. So I'm really curious. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? Yeah. Oh, say your name and then answer.
Hi, my name is No. My goal is I've been trying to set up like my own design agency, just like one or two people, and in the process, I feel like I struggle with distraction, getting overwhelmed, not being able to focus at certain times, and execute certain things. So I'm hoping to learn some tools to be able to do that.
Okay, so anyone else? Last? Going once? Okay, one more question before we continue. When was the last time you were in flow and what were you doing? When was the last time you felt like you were in the zone, you were lost in whatever it is that you were doing? Everything else, like, was all away. Everything else didn't matter. Like, what mattered was just this moment by moment experience. Like, the world went quiet. You were so aware of the task at hand. You felt like you're one with whatever it is that you do.
Hi, my name is Reggie. The last time that I was in the flow, it was like a long time ago. It was really a massage therapist in the US. So the massage is only one thing that is kind of like separate me from the different person. Like when I'm in trans to the room to massage, I'm just like completely different person. Like just standing. And I'm not even know about the time or what going on. Just going. So
Hi, Michelle. The last time was yesterday actually, when I did art on my friends. The flow state is when I was in the present moment and letting go of everything around me. And then I started receiving like a different type of quotes and inspirations and creativities to enhance my art. And everything around me is all silent and become one. I become one with the air, I become one with myself, the breath around the breath, yeah, everything just become written, like I become written.
Okay, last one.
Last time was yesterday when I was playing with my dog. A very good dog.
Thank you. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about how to engineer flow. Some people, when I ask them, what is flow? Like, I don't really know now. I don't know what it is. I'm like, okay, when was the last time you felt this? Ah, I felt it yesterday. I was doing this. I actually felt flow. Right, exactly. So that was what we're going to be talking about. Because most of the time, especially in this generation, we're like completely distracted. There's so many stimuli that wants our attention, right? It's hard to like zone in. It's hard to hone in. It feels like you're always swimming against the tide, always swimming against the current. And no matter how strong you are, you're going to get tired. And eventually you're just going to go with. All right. So just a little bit of what my background is. I'm a rock climber, so that's my main. That's my main pursuit, I guess. That's the main flow activity for me. And the reason is because when I'm climbing, when you're in front of this rock, that number one, it's so hungry. Number two, when I'm climbing, it's like you're intentionally putting yourself in a high stress situation where you need to have clarity of thought. I can't really think about my bills. I can't really think about all the tasks that I still need to do. I have a problem at hand and I cannot be in my head. I need to be so aware of the problem at hand so that I'm so in the moment. That way I can actually solve the problem and then right here, right now. But it's not automatic. And I'm going to tell you a little bit later of how to engineer flow into your life. Or how to design your life in the way that makes flow inevitable. Okay, so it's time to talk about number one, what flow actually is and why it outperforms productivity systems. Number two, the three non-negotiable conditions for entering flow. And a sharp self-assessment to find where flow is blocked. Okay, so why is flow important? Why do we consider it a mental edge? Why does all these other productivity systems, why is that no longer works? So the aim today or tonight is to break mental barriers of peak performance by tapping into flow when it matters most. And I talk a lot about peak performance because with my work or with my job, I guess in general, how I live my life is I only have one life to live. And I didn't see why I would have, live a mediocre life. So I kind of want to find a way where I can peak perform in most aspects of my life. But it's more like functioning optimally. So in my whole description, flow is a mental state where peak performance happens. Stephen Kotler is one of there are three companies in the world that does the research of the neuroscience and psychology of flow. One of them is Flow Research Collective, that's the American side. The one that I worked with is Flow Center, the Australian side. Another one is Flow Genome Project, the one in the UK. But I like to use Stephen Kotler's description because it's simple. He says flow is an optimal state of consciousness where you feel your best and you perform your best. Let me say that again. Flow is an optimal state of consciousness where you feel your best and you perform your best. So think about the last time you felt your best and you perform your best. When you're executing like smoothly, there's this smooth and fluid execution. You are not having that second thought. You're not thinking, there's no hesitation. You just went for it and you know that you have what it takes to meet the challenge at hand. And there's no like, should I do it? Oh, what will people think? Or blah, blah, blah. It just goes quiet. You just move. So freeze that thought. And we're going to go back to it there. Well, I already talked about myself. I don't want to talk too much about myself, but I have a psych degree. I didn't really pursue it. Immediately I worked in publishing for 6 years. I was working with authors. It's an American publishing company. Eventually I worked with tech startups, so I was consulting. And then during COVID, you have a lot of time for introspection. And that's when I started actually founding my own company. I was into a media company. So I built my own media company where we produced narrative podcasts for brands. Eventually I burnt out. And then I was like, you know what? This is not for me anymore. I'm really curious. How can I constantly be my best? How can I engineer this life where I'm driven by passion, with this joy and satisfaction? Because I'm done with like, this feeling of like grit, like, like, may work for other people. It doesn't work for me. Or that's not what I want. I also currently have a project on pole position OS, pole position operating system. So if you're familiar with Formula One, so pole position is the one at the front, right? Um, I am working with Kevin Pujalar. He is a Formula One racing director for State Saga. So we created this program where it's like an amalgamation of both our expertise, his in Formula One and mine in psychology. So it's like group psychology. How do we put together both the psychology of high performance and the tactical side of high performance of teams? I'm not gonna go into that. Okay. Most high performers are optimizing the wrong thing. They're managing time, downloading focus tools, pushing harder, but time management isn't the bottleneck. State management is. I don't know why I put this slide in here. But I'm curious. Who here is or have experienced or maybe is burnt out? Have experienced burnt. Number one. I guess most of us, right? We're just like grinding and grinding and grinding, and we think that like, yeah, hard work is gonna lead us to success. But really, the thing that I'm competing against is hard work. Why? Here's the thing. You see, there's this promise that you should be the hardest working person in the world. The harder you work, the more successful you get. Right. Yeah, for sure. But think about this. Even if you put in 80 hours a week in that week, doesn't mean that the quality of your work doubles. After 40 hours and 41 hours or 42, your performance declines. So you're just grinding yourself to the ground, and the hard work has what's this called? It's a point of diminishing returns, right? So hard work is not the answer, because if it was, we won't be burnt out. Okay, I talk about flow a little bit. Flow is a buzzword. It's a biological state. So what happens when you're in flow? Why do you feel like when you're in flow state, you feel like you can do anything? You feel like you're Superman. You feel like time either goes fast or it slows down. You're so in the moment that you just forget about yourself. You lose your sense of self. You're so in whatever it is that you're doing. You feel like you're one with the bra, one with whatever it is that you if you're writing, words just come to you. There's this like fluidity. There's no hesitation. There's no drag. Nothing is pulling you back. So, number one, it's the neurochemistry of flow. So there are 5 neurochemicals that show up when you're in flow. Dopamine, norepinephrine, endorphin, serotonin, and anandamide. So these are pleasurable chemicals. Pleasure chemicals. We obviously can get it, like in drugs. But think about this. Our brain naturally produces it all at once. This perfect cocktail that allows us to perform at our best. It says here neurological. Prefrontal cortex quiets down, or transient hyperfrontality. What does that mean? So remember the time I told you freeze that moment where you were in flow? How was your mind? What was going on inside your mind? Was anything going on inside? Was there mental chaos, or did you get mental clarity? Right. Was there like dread? Was there any hesitation? Probably not. Usually when you're in flow, your mind goes quiet. And why does that happen? It's because of transient hypofrontal. So transient, temporary, hypo, low. Frontality or prefrontal cortex, the executive function of the brain. It goes, when you're in flow, it goes quiet. So you're not so much in your head anymore. You're not thinking, not so much in rational. You're more using your embodied intuition. You're like intuition. You're just moving intuition intuitively. So this prefrontal cortex, the executive functioning part of the brain that makes a decision, rational thinking, like all these executive functioning, it goes quiet. Why? Because then once it goes quiet, your awareness heightens. Your awareness heightens. So for example, when I'm planning, or let's use an example, this guy who is surveying. Do you think it's in his head? Like, oh, should I do that? What should I do? No, he has no time. The more he does that, the more he starts to hesitate. He's done. Look at this way. He is done. So that means his mind has to go so fast that it feels automatic. It has to be automatic. If it's not automatic, he's done. So most of the time, flow happens when the stakes are high as well. It's either you get in the flow or you die. Okay. Lastly, psychological defocus, time distortion, high skill engagement. So again, let's use this example of this man who is surfing. This activity is laden with so many flow triggers, a lot of preconditions to flow, a lot of flow drivers or triggers. Because he has to be focused, he can't be thinking about anything else except for whatever it is that he's doing, whatever the task is at hand. Time distortion. It seems like time goes so slow or it goes fast. So it depends on the situation. High skill engagement. This type of way requires really high skill level. Otherwise, he's done. Okay. Benefits of flow. Why do you need to train flow? Why do you need to get to flow more often? So based on McKinsey, it says 500% increase in executives' productivity. What does this mean? How does this translate and work? That means in what you usually need to accomplish in 5 days, you can accomplish in 3 days. 3 days of heightened creativity after a flow state, 49% faster skill and decision, 430% increase in creative problem solving. I'm not going to go deep into that. All right. So let's keep familiarizing ourselves with what flow is. So Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, he's a godfather of flow. This is his description of what flow is: a state in which people are so involved in an activity that nothing else seems to matter. The experience itself is so enjoyable that the people will do it even at great cost for the sheer sake of doing it. Why? Because it's pleasurable. You get those five chemicals, they show up. It's pleasurable. The best moments in your lives are not passive, receptive, relaxing times. The best moments usually occur when a person's body or mind is stretched to its limits in voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult or worthwhile. So, what we're saying here is in order for you to get into flow, the main thing in flow psychology is challenge skills and bounds. What does that mean? Okay. What does challenge skills balance mean? So, for people who have high flow proneness, they're usually engage or embrace the challenge. They're ready to embrace a challenge. For example, let's say that I engage in so I do rock climbing. So every route that I climb, it has the difficulty. They have the graded difficulty. So it starts from 4A, 4B, 4C, 5A, 5B, 5C, 6A, 6A, that until it's 9C, which is like crazy. I don't even know what that looks like anymore. Okay. Now, in order for me to get into flow, because my skill level is slightly higher already, I cannot be climbing 4A. I'm just going to be bored. So you see, if the level of the challenge is too low, and the level of skill is high, I'm just going to be too relaxed. Or maybe I'm going to be apathetic. If the level of the challenge is too high and the skill level is low, it's going to be anxious. If the level of the challenge is high, that's like in the middle. There's high arousal. But if you hit the sweet spot between anxiety and boredom, right, where the level of the challenge is just right above your skill level, that you're using your skills to the utmost, right? You're using your skills to the utmost, but you know that you know that you know that you have what it takes to rise to the challenge. Fully, it pulls you in the moment. You're automatically fully engaged. Let's use running, for example. If I just decide, I'm going to run a marathon, 42K, I'm also going to be anxious. Why? Because my skill level is low. It's not high enough to meet that challenge. But if I decide to run maybe 10 kilometers tomorrow, I feel in control. But if I run maybe like 18, okay, it's gonna hit the sweet spot into anxiety and boredom. I'm gonna be working hard, not too hard that I just feel like, oh, I'm too overwhelmed, like I can do it, and I just feel paralyzed because the challenge is too high, like there's no point. Or if I just say 2 kilometers and just like a relaxing run, I'm gonna be relaxed, right? So that's the main flow precondition to flow. You need to engage in challenge where it's just right above your skill level that you're using your skills to the utmost and it pulls you in the moment. So let's say this is the level of the challenge and this is your skill level. That's to be just right above. The more you engage in that challenge, obviously your skill level is not going to stay here. It's going to go higher. That means what do you do to stay in flow? Then you need to increase either the level of the challenge or the complexity of the challenge. Right. But based on research, the arbitrary number for the level of the challenge is 4%. So the challenge has to be 4% higher than your skill level. For some people, maybe 20%, maybe 10%. We don't know. It's up to you. That means you need to have like high ranks. You need to know, okay, what is the level of the challenge where I get pulled in? What is the level of the challenge where it's just too high that I feel paralyzed and I can do anything? Or if the level of the challenge is too low, you're just bored. Right? You also need to be optimally challenged. But again, we also then need to think about the level of the challenge is perceived. The level of your skill is also perceived. If you think you have no skill, but your skill at this activity is very low, right? Then you're not going to be able to get in flow. So you kind of need to check in with yourself, right? What are the activities that get me into flow? What is the level, right? So you need to have like some time for reflection, some time for like introspection, some time for experimentation. So we were saying earlier, when the performance goes high, it's here. When the level of challenge is quite low, then you're relaxed, or you're composed, you're playful. And then you hit the sweet spot, which is a flow state. Again, you need to be optimally challenged. In between flow and anxious, there's this thing we call clutch. Have you heard of that term before? Nope. No. Clutch. Okay. So clutch is where you're peak performing. You're performing at your peak. But the subjective internal experience is this like, I need to do this, I'm just gonna do this. This is what we're familiar with. This is what most peak performers, most high performers, this is what they do. But what happens? We get burnt out. Number 2, after you're performing at your peak, and then you're using clutch, you have like a sense of relief. Like, Oh, so bad it's done. And what happens? It creates avoidance. You will no longer put yourself in a challenging situation. Why? Because you know it's expensive mentally, and you're gonna get into this feeling of like grind. It creates avoidance, and then creates a cycle. What's the difference between flow and clutch? The difference is the subjective internal experience. Why do I say subjective internal experience? A lot of the work that we work a lot with high performers who are used to doing clutch, who are used to like, the skill level is high, the mental psychological skill is high. So they engage in a lot of like activities, right? Because they need like high sense of arousal for them to be able to get in flow. The problem is it gets them burnt out. And then there's a lot of anxious thoughts. They need to like have this control, which is the opposite of flow because there's a sense of letting go. You kind of like need to surrender to whatever task that you're doing. You need to kind of like trust yourself, right? That you know that you know that you know that you have what it takes to meet the challenge at hand and perform optimally. So most high performers are just like, oh, I need to have everything perfectly so that I can perform. Yeah, well, what if something else? What if one of those, I don't know, 10 things that you need to prepare is not going to be there? What's going to happen? No. You're not going to be able to consistently perform at your best. So the idea is, how are you able to perform at your best even when you're at your worst? This is why you need to train the flow. Okay, I want to share this other description because I think this is from Steve Calder. It's more descriptive. So he said, flow is an optimal state of consciousness where we feel our best and perform our best. The term describes those moments of total absorption and rapt attention where sense of self vanishes, our sense of time distorts, and all aspects of the performance soar through the roof. I'm going to read that one more time. The term describes those moments of total absorption. So we're underlying total absorption and rapt attention, where our sense of self vanishes, our sense of time distorts, and all aspects of performance soar through the roof. So you see the contradiction. Your performance soars through the roof, but your sense of self vanishes. Your sense of time distorts. What is happening here? We said earlier, right, when we're in flow, there's transient hypervitality. Prefrontal cortex temporarily shuts off. So instead of using rational thinking, we're using our intuition. We're using embodied cognition. So our awareness heightens. Whatever challenge, whatever activity we're engaged in, we're so in there that we have enough space to be agile. Why? Because when you're so in your head, you tense. You're just like, I need to follow this. But if you're so in the moment, you have like this flexibility, cognitive and psychological flexibility to meet whatever the task needs in the moment. Because you're like so aware of whatever it is whatever the challenge needs. Think about Formula One drivers, for example. I like to use this because it's fun. In Formula One, you know, what their high performance, how they measure progress is a tenth of a second. Can you imagine that? A tenth of a second. Like a what? What do you mean? Yeah. That means when you are racing with 19 other drivers and you're using this like machine, which is like like a plane, like a combat airplane, but on land, you have to think fast. Well, you have a straight, you have to have a race strategist in your head, like talking to you. You also have like, and it's so fast, right? You're going like 300 miles, 300 kilometers an hour, so fast. You have no time to, oh, should I do this? I'm like, no, and you're practical. And these are the best in the world, right? They're the best of the best in the world. That means they have to be agile. They have to have like fast reflexes. They can't think. You just go. That means that skill has to be so deeply embedded into the system that it becomes a part of them, that it becomes who they are, so that it becomes automatic. That's how you get in the flow, right? You need to have like a certain level of skill, right? That's so deeply embedded into your system, so that whatever challenge it is that you're trying to engage in, again, there's this trust in self that you know that you know that you know. The moment you second guess yourself, you're out of the race, or maybe you can die. All right, let's dig into the neuroscience of flow, because I think this is exciting. All right, so imagine this. When you're in flow, all of these neurochemicals show up all at once. Dopamine, it drives motivation and focus. We're kind of like familiar with dopamine. Norepinephrine, it heightens attention and alertness. So it tightens focus as well. Endorphins reduces pain and stress, making hard tasks feel easier. So think about the last time you were in flow where you feel like, even if whatever it is that you're doing, right now I'm playing, for example, like it hurts, it's painful. But that's not my focus right now. I want to get to the anchor. So I don't really have time to think about this pain. But then it gives me a certain high, you know, just like every time I move up, I get this like dopamine high where I'm like, I have what it takes. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Anandamide boosts creativity and helps you connect new ideas, or technical term is pattern recognition. So you're able to connect. You're able to find. Oh no, yeah, forget about that. All right, lastly, serotonin stimulates the mood, making you feel great while in the zone. Okay, do you guys have any questions? I feel like I kept talking and I want space for questions or anything. If you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand and we'll dig into that. Okay. The cost of not being in flow. So most of us use willpower to achieve whatever it is that we want to achieve. But again, willpower is a finite resource. Later in the day, you have like high willpower in the morning, and it just goes down much later in the day. Why? Because you already spent it, right? But really, it's more about like eliminating friction. How do we get into flow? How are we able to function optimally? How are we able to design a life in a way that makes flow inevitable, that makes peak performance sustainable? We want to eliminate friction, whatever that is. It's not just about, clarity is not about accumulation. It's about eliminating friction. What does that look like, for example? Let's say you want to run. You want to start running tomorrow. This is like a very basic example. What do? You can't like really constantly motivate yourself. Eventually you're just going to get bored. Then you prepare your shoes, you prepare your workout clothes. You just design your environment so that the moment you wake up, bam, another trigger. Oh, I need to do this. There's no time to think. The environment automatically pulls you there. So you kind of want to feel pulled instead of constantly pushing yourself, because it's expensive. If we're constantly pushing ourselves, and I'm saying this because that's what I did, and I like to push, and I want to push. Today I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do this. I'm like, man, I'm getting old and I'm tired. Like, is there another way to execute smoothly without my internal experience getting so negative that I just become so resentful and just like tired of the world. How do I keep the joy, the satisfaction, sense of fulfillment where I'm doing something where I feel like, wow, that was really nice. And then I want to keep doing it and doing it and doing it. Right? Okay. So eliminate friction. Anyway, let's go back. So the cost of not being in flow, cognitive friction, emotional burnt out, diminishing returns from effort. We talked about this earlier. Low ROI on your energy. Why do I see this? Again, it's connected to the law of diminishing returns, where doesn't mean that the energy you put in is going to produce the same quality of work much later once you're pushing past your limit, right? So not being in flow comes with a cost. Okay, any questions? Nope. Okay. All right. So we now understand what flow is. Kind of, hopefully. We kind of understand what are the neurochemistry of flow. We understand why we need to get in flow. What are the costs? Now, what is it? How do we apply this in our lives? Like practically on a daily basis, what does this look like? How do we design an environment that makes flow inevitable? So there are core preconditions to flow. We talked about challenge, skills, of balance. I said here, just hard enough. So you want to engage in a task that's just hard enough. If you want to run a 42K marathon, you don't want to you want to break it down, right? Because we talked about challenge, skills, balance earlier. We're 4% higher than your skill level. So what does that look like against your skill level right now, against your stamina right now? Maybe 4% is only 5 kilometers. Right. And then, your skill level went up already. Now I can do 7 kilometers. Perfect. And then you just keep going up, going up, going up. You increase the level of the challenge or the complexity of the challenge. Number 2, clear goals. Reduce cognitive ambiguity. All right, we already know this. But the purpose of having clear goals, it sets a direction, right? It directs your behavior. You know where to go. My goal is to finish a marathon. That is a clear goal. But then what does immediate feedback mean? Tie feedback loop for fast adjustment and course correction. So let's look at the guy earlier who was surfing. He has a clear goal. His goal is to surf this massive wave. He has, what did we say earlier? Forgot. Challenge skills balance. So clearly his skill level is pretty high for him to be able to even say yes to get into this game. Immediate feedback. What does that look like in this activity? What would that look like?
Falling off the board.
Bam. So the moment he second guesses himself, right? The immediate feedback is going to fall off. That's the immediate feedback. So the feedback loop is tight. It's tight enough that he will know that he made a mistake. So what would that look like? In rock climbing, for example. So in rock climbing, well, it's pretty clear. If I hesitate, I'm going to fall. And yeah, I'm not going to die, but this feeling of death, this feeling of falling, it's not very fun. I don't really like it. It's okay, but it's not what I want. What would that look like in your work? So if you apply these 3 core conditions for flow, what would that look like? Does anyone want to share an example?
I'll try to ask a question.
Yeah.
So, the examples I think that you're using, things people have said so far, seem to apply to things that we have a choice over. For example, if I'm going to choose a challenge, well, I think stress for many people would be that the challenge of work is being dictated by somebody else, right? So they can't manage the level of challenge. And that's why the anxiety sets in or a diseased attitude. So is there anything that you're suggesting in terms of engineering flow that would help someone who's not in control of a hobby like surfing or rock climbing, to deal with that? How do you move into flow when you cannot control the level of challenge?
Right. You cannot control the level of the challenge.
If your boss says do X, Y, or Z by this deadline, you're not controlling that challenge. It's an assignment given to you by someone else, right? Same might be true about life situations. You're in a terrible breakup. For older folks going through divorce, you're not in control of that challenge. So therefore, maybe you cannot address that task with the same flow. So I'm just wondering, in your experience, you're working with, it sounds like professional athletes. They're doing something they're passionate about. They have a clear goal. And to some extent, they're choosing their own arena to participate. That's not the situation for everyone in everyday life. So that's my question that you can address now, later, or totally forget.
Yeah, no, we can go for it. So I don't just work with athletes. I work with professionals, executives, and leaders. And it's not all the time that whatever challenge is brought to them is something they want. That there's not a lot of autonomy, right? There's not a lot of autonomy in what they are doing. So how do they get into flow? We go back to like what we said about like eliminating friction. This is my task. How can I break this down so that even if this is a challenge that I want, but how can I break this down where I can still find flow? How can I make this something, we call like autotelic, where even if it's not something you love, but you do it for the sake of doing it. What we would usually say is that in terms of workplace, how can you gamify that? It's like gamifying the experience. That way you still feel, even if you're not really fully in control, but you still have some sense of control. How can you maximize that control where you feel like, yes, I have autonomy. I have autonomy of like how I can break this down and challenge this balance, but I also have a sense of I have the skill to be able to meet whatever level of the challenge that I'm putting myself. I also have the skill to like decide however I want to steer, however I want to approach this project. So we can't really, you're absolutely right with what you said. But at the end of the day, we still have control. At the end of the day, even if we're working on something that we're not fully in control, how can we maximize the things that we have control over? And how can we gamify it? Right? How can we kind of like organize our thoughts, our control, where we can still feel that we have this sense and we have this power to feel? Yeah. Is that helpful? Good. Oh, well, I mean, I can keep going on and on. Or we can talk about this later. Okay. Flow conditions. So preconditions to flow: clear goals, immediate feedback, challenge skills, balance. This is pretty clear, especially in a team setup. Clear goals, immediate feedback, and challenge skill balance. Number two, the state markers: deep focus, time distortion, loss of self, purging action awareness. Lastly, flow amplifiers, sense of control and intrinsic motivation. Or I said it earlier, autotelic. Autotelic means the activity is the reward in itself. So you're not waiting for a professional. I'm not a professional athlete, but I'm still climbing because I love it, even if it hurts and it's so tiring. But the activity itself is intrinsically rewarding. It's intrinsically rewarded for me, so I keep doing it. So how can you kind of like, if you look at all these flow triggers, how can you design your daily work where you can find all these flow triggers where it's still like a flow inducing activity, even if it's not completely? We're good here. All right. Okay, so how most people block flow. So most high performers that I work with, they have this sense of productivity guilt. Oh, I need to like block a lot of like tasks on my calendar. La la la. We know the story. It's not uncommon. Most common blockers, multitasking, overwhelm, low challenge, high distraction environments, undefined work sessions. So I'm going to think about how this applies in your daily life. What are the things that cause you overwhelm? How can you break that down where it can still be the challenge at hand, can still be 4% higher than your skill level, but you still feel like you have autonomy over this task? Low challenge, high distraction environments. Sometimes if the challenge is too low, you're just bored, you're disengaged. There's no point in doing this. This is too easy. I'm not even interested. And there's just like high distraction. How can you block out those noise that is not relevant in the task at hand? And define work sessions. Usually, if you're a founder, if you're an entrepreneur, there's an endless list of things to do. Like you never feel like there's a win. You can never feel like, no matter how many things you've already accomplished, you never feel like there's a clear win at the end of the day. Right? And so it's like, oh, I have like all these piles of lists. So how do you address that? Usually, we would say, before you start your day, you want to think about like, what are the top 3 things that would make you feel like I won this day? What are those top 3 things that even if the day goes all right, I have these top 3 things, maybe 2, maybe 1, that I can say that I won this day. And why is that important? Because it helps you gain momentum. And once you have that feeling, this power of that sense of accomplishment, it continues on. It'll continue to power you on the next day and the next day and the next day. And then when you go back, you realize, oh, I have a stat of undeniably proof that I can do hard things. Bam. Then you realize, oh, okay, I'm not that bad in that life, Joe. Right? Like it's very important to like how you really kind of want to define your work session, work session. Because it's so easy for us to be pulled from different directions that and at the end of the day, like, yeah, we're so exhausted, but we haven't accomplished anything. Really though? Okay, now how do you really like set those 3 things to 1 up to you? Okay, so for all these 4 things, multitasking, overwhelm, low challenge, high distraction environments, define work sessions. Which of these are currently true for you? Okay. So we're gonna do a little bit of self-assessment. Where's your flow blocked? Am I spending most of my time in boredom, stress, or stretch? Do I have clear and meaningful goals every day? And I want to underline this word meaningful because it's not only in the tasks or goals at work. What about in our personal lives? What are we pursuing goals that matter to us, that propel us forward? Do I get feedback on whether I'm moving forward? Again, am I spending most of my time in boredom? The challenge is too low that I'm bored. The challenge is too high that I'm stressed, or I'm just stretched enough, just enough, not too much. I'm stretched. I like it. It pulls me in the moment. I'm engaged, but it's not too high. Do have clear and meaningful goals every day? Do get feedback on whether I'm moving forward or not? And honestly, the feedback is very important because it allows us to course correct immediately, right? See, mostly at work, most, if you're a leader at work or you're working with an employee or someone, you're mentoring someone, it doesn't make sense to give them an annual review. Why? It will not give them an opportunity to course correct immediately, where they can still see progression. Right? There's no time for them to course correct. It's true. The feedback is too low. Let's say whatever they made a mistake on February, and you give them a feedback in December. That feedback already expired. I will no longer, if I'm the employee, I will no longer remember it. It's pointless. Like, you should have told me in February when I had time to correct it, so that by December, I will no longer be ending this year in, like, I don't know, sloppy performance. So it's also, as leaders, it's also our responsibility to give immediate feedback, timely feedback, not only for other people, but mostly for ourselves. Because again, flow is more so about us. It's like a personal thing. Unless, again, you're working with a group and it's team flow. Okay, so what are the 3 actionable things you can do starting today or maybe tomorrow? Number 1, design for stretch. Dial up difficulty by 4%. Either you dial up or dial down, depending on what challenge you're engaging in. Then you kind of need to also assess, what is my perceived level of skill? What's my perceived level of challenge? How do I dial up the activity? How do I dial up the difficulty or the complexity of the challenge? Or how do I dial it down? Is 4%, like, am I just relax at 4%? Should I bring it up to 20? Because then I'm like, I'm double amped up. Like, yeah, let's do this. Or you feel paralyzed. Kind of. Sorry? Oh, it's just an arbitrary number. Yeah, it's just an arbitrary number. It's like a lot of it is just perceived. Yeah, it's up to you. Because it's like when they ask you, how do I know I'm optimally challenged? Well, what is your perceived level the level of the challenge is perceived, the level of skill level is perceived. Yeah. So it's like, how much are you aware of yourself and you know that, okay, this is actually 4%, or this is too much stretch for me. Yeah. So a lot of it is experimentation. Block for depth, minimum 90 minutes uninterrupted. I think this is something we already know. Lastly, set clear outcomes. 1 needle moving task per session. Okay, so I also kind of want to get clear on this outcome, right? Because in flow, it's not so much about getting to the outcome. It's not so much about getting there to the outcome. It's more so about falling in love with the process. Why? For example, let's say I need to raise, I don't know, $30 million. $30 million for my company. Right? But then that outcome is in the future. You really don't have a lot of control of that because there's a lot of things involved. But how can you still feel like you have control over this, like raising $30 million? You fall in love with the process. What does that look like? Getting to the outcome is in the future. What we have control over is the now, this moment by moment experience. What can I do in my process, the right here, right now, that would allow me to get to the 30 million? Again, it's just an example. To get to the 30 million, right? Like, I have no control over it, I have control in that. How can I make this negotiation where I'm so, when you become anxious, when you're so future oriented, you have no control over it. We already know that. Right? Then it pulls you away from your moment by moment experience. But what if you're talking to this investor right here, right now? Oh, you're going to close this round and well, You're not in flow. Why? You're thinking about the future, but this is the person you need to win over. How do you get into flow? You know that what you need to do, which is to get your pitch. This is also another person, right? How do you get so into the moment where you're able to let go of any thought? You know that you have what it takes. Like have the skill level to deliver your pitch, to negotiate. But this is also like a high complexity environment where you need to be hyper aware of the moment at hand so that whatever it is that he's talking, whatever question, whatever it is, you're able to address this with a lot of like agility, with a lot of creativity. Because you can't really be creative if you're anxious. You can't be anxious and creative at the same time, right? So like, okay, my goal, the goal directs your behavior. The goal sets the direction. But that is not where you want to focus at hand. If I want to win gold, if I want to become first place, if I'm working with like three, is another example that I really like to share because it's quite clear. Think about this. You are an elite athlete, you're a runner. You're representing your country. The weight is on your shoulder. All these elite athletes, the training, the nutrition, deep recovery, right, is on point. It's world class. These are the best of the best in the world. How do you differentiate those people who get to the podium and you don't? When you're at the starting line, what do you think about? Oh, I'm going to get to this first. Da, 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 da. It's in the future. You have no control for it. How do you get that? Right? You have this weight on your shoulder. You're representing your country. And like, when you think about all these things, you tense up. Man, you're not in the moment anymore. You're not able to perform at your best anymore because you're already thinking about this. But, right, the main differentiator is, are they able to tap into flow and command when it matters most? Are you able to quiet down everything else so that you're so focused on the task at hand? You're focused with your pacing, breath, how you, I don't know, like, I'm not really wrong about like how you run your, whatever, your cadence or something. And then you kind of like just trust in your training. You perform how you train because the training is so deeply embedded into your system, right? So again, we go back and think about this where in order for us to get into flow, the main thing is we still have a responsibility to have skill, high level of skill, whatever that means. That's very subjective. So the main differentiator of all these elite athletes is if they were able to turn off all the noise, all the chatter that pulls them away from the moment. They're just trust in their training. Everything goes quiet. They have the agility, the flexibility, and they just go. And then they don't realize, okay, they're already at the finish line. But most of us, we think about this outcome and they're just like, tense up. Oh, I'm going to do this. No. Once you relax, then you're able to, let's say you're at a networking event. I don't know. And it's like anxiety inducing. I need to perform like this. They need to think like I'm really good and all these other things that's in your head. But when you're in flow, self vanishes, right? The sense of self vanishes because of transient hyperfatality. This self-defeating thoughts, they turn off. And you're able to really fully engage in whoever it is that you're talking to. You can really ask the right question, the perfect timing, and deep focus, and they will feel, this person is actually listening. This person is so keen, so interested, curious, that you're not able to undo that. If you're so in your head, what would they think? There's a lot of hesitation. So, yeah. Okay, so I don't know if we're able to achieve this, but hopefully there are some actionable things that you learned from this. Understand what flow is and why it matters. Know the 3 conditions required to enter flow and see exactly where your flow is being developed and what to do about it. Yeah. Okay, we have, I think, time for questions. If you have questions. Yeah.
Like, what if, like, some people, someone have ADHD, how can we go into, like, flow state? we get distracted by our own thought itself.
Actually, we do. Most there's a lot of research about flow with ADHD, people with ADHD. It's not impossible to get in flow even if you have ADHD, but it requires a lot of training. It requires a lot of mental training. So there's therapy, but there's also mental training, or mental performance training. It's like a muscle. Focus is like a muscle that you need to train. Did I answer your question? I think number one thing that I would recommend is think about what are the maybe top three things that get you into flow. Start with that. If you're some of the flow triggers that we use are it's a topic that you're curious about. If you're curious about something, you're passionate about something, automatically it pulls you in the moment. If you're interested in a person, you're interested in this person, you're curious. You want to know about this person. You want to know what's on their mind, what they do, it pulls you in the moment. If you're interested in swimming, for example, right? It's like, it helps you get in focus immediately. Start there. Like, what are the top three things I'm curious about? And why is that important? Because once you're able to, once you find an activity that gets you into flow, like quickly, that skill, it's easily transferred. It'll bleed into other areas of your life. So you kind of need to find that one thing. For me, it's wrong for me. It like absolutely gets me into flow. I've tried a lot of sports, a lot of different sports before, but nothing really sustained my attention except for rock climbing. And I think it's because like it's a solo sport. And there's enough complexity. It's complex enough. It's scary enough. There's like an element of risk, an element of novelty, passion, and curiosity. These are all flow triggers. I need to have a sense of risk working. I like a feeling of depth. Like that. But risk only is not only about physical. It's not always physical. It can be creative risk if you're an artist. It can be social risk. Oh, I'm interested in this person. Do I talk to this person? Just like that, right? So it's creative risk, social risk, physical risk. For me, it's more like the physical. I like to, yeah, flirt with risk. It's fun for me. It like gets me, so it pulls me. Why? Because there's this feeling of you could die. You could like, so I love that. Yeah, I guess this is why I'm interested in sports like this. And then because I've trained my mind, like doing ground value, say I've intentionally put myself in a high stress situation where you need to have clarity of thought, where you need to problem solve. That's a mental skill. I'm able to use that in other areas of my life, especially at work, where it is stressful to go to a company. It's stressful to reach out to these companies, build partnerships, blah, blah, blah. But because I was able to develop that mental muscle from climbing, like, okay, I've done hard. There's like, I have a stack of undeniable proof that I can do hard things. I can get from there, and I can use that in this aspect of my life. Because I know I've done hard things before. I can handle this. So it's kind of like that. Yeah. Any more questions? Yeah.
I have two questions. Feel free to choose one of them or both. So first of all, about professions which are not sports and more, let's say, thinking oriented, like I don't know, software engineering, math, etc. Like, what are the tips to be in flow? And second question, are there any tools that can be used in order to train ourselves in flow for any kind of profession or situation? That maybe some of the people, top performers or other people use in order to train themselves, that you know about.
Yeah, for knowledge workers or like engineering, stuff like that, your question was how do we apply flow? How do we train? How do you train yourself? Okay. So I shared earlier, it's more so how do you design your daily life, your environment where flow becomes inevitable? What would that look like in your setup? what are the flow blockers? We can start with that. What are the things that blocking you from flow? Can you eliminate that? How can you design your task where the challenge feels balanced? You hit the sweet spot where you get into flow. If you don't get automatically into flow, so our brain is like a body, it's a muscle. You want to warm up. So usually, for example, like this is just for me. You can like apply how it would look like for you. Before I can really get into flow when I'm working, I would like writing my journal, just like brain dump before I focus. Why? It's a warm up. For me, it's a warm up. It's like, okay, there's so much chaos in my mind. I need clarity. I will dump everything in my mind, put it in my notion. Da 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 da. Suddenly I'm getting momentum. Ooh, okay, now we can really get into the harder stuff. And this is the complete opposite of like what they teach in like eat the frog first or do the hard task first. For him, like, really? I woke up. Do you really expect me to wake up and do the hard task first? Man, no. So are you telling me that you want me to wake up and run a marathon immediately? No. Our brain is a muscle. Our mind's a muscle. You need to warm up. So whatever that would look like for you, whatever that would look like for your day, or maybe I don't know much about math and stuff, but I studied psychology for a reason to avoid anything numbers. But did that answer your question? So, and you said, what are the tools you use? So some of the tools we use, for example, is visualization and mental rehearsal. Mental rehearsal. Visualization is you kind of like visualizing. How would I want my day to look like? What does that look like? You visualize. But then what does mental rehearsal mean? Now you know what you want your day to look like, then you rehearse it mentally. Oh, I think about, now I woke up and then I did this. You actually run your day through your mind as if you're doing it in your head. So that when you're actually living your day, you go automatically. Why? Because it already happened in your head. Everything. So once you actually live the day, you're just executing. Right? This is what like in gymnastics, for example, or Formula One, where so they have like a specific track in each city. They rehearse it in their mind. Or, okay, I'm driving this. Okay, this and that. What I would do. What if the problems would happen? You already solved that in your mind, so that when it's happening right now, you already know how to solve it in your mind. That there's no reason that you can't solve it now. You've already solved the problem in your mind, so you just execute. Kind of like eliminating disruption. So visualization, mental rehearsal, they have to go together. Why? Visualization is not enough. Like just visualizing, oh, I'm gonna have like a big car, or I'm gonna be this way. Okay, and then what? You need to actually walk that in your mind. What are the things I need to do? What are the problems that I'm going to encounter? What are the things that are going to have a barrier? What are the barriers that I will have to overcome to get to that goal? Rehearse that in your mind so that your mind is so strong. Again, once you get there, you just execute. You need to negotiate. Again, okay, what would I like the negotiation to be like? What are the possible objections? What are my blue buttons? Now you know. Okay, then walk through that situation in your mind. So, then all these negative things, this anxiety, this overwhelm, you can feel that in the practice. But because you've done it so much, when you need to do it, you don't all these other feelings, it's not there anymore. Because you already felt it in the practice. Yeah. Visualization, mental rehearsal. Okay. Any more? Maybe last two? Going once? No more questions?
How do we, okay, how do we see exactly where flow is being blocked.
How do we? Here. I think a lot of it is mostly I would go about my day in my mind. I spend a lot of time in my mind. And that's very important because you kind of need to. I guess in our generation right now, I don't know, we're kind of like very disengaged with our own thoughts. That we feel like we're not in control, but we actually are. To sit down and go over it. So the opposite of flow, the opposite of flow is entropy. Entropy is chaos, mental chaos. How do we get into flow? How do we bring order into our minds? How do we bring order into our thinking? How do we organize our thoughts? We need to sit down and spend time, journal it, do a brain dump, and then organize what are the thoughts that are helpful, what are the thoughts that are unhelpful. It's not so much we're judging our own thoughts where it's good and bad. It's more like what are the things that would help me? What are the thoughts that would help me for my performance? What are the thoughts that are unhelpful? How do I eliminate these unhelpful thoughts so they will not cause mental barriers, right, from me achieving my goal. So yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah.
I'll try to move more.
Yeah.
From the research and the neuroscience of this, what is your sense of how much flow can be engineered and deliberately facilitated versus what amount of flow is basically arising out of conditions more passively, more spontaneously?
Say that again. What are the
Okay, my understanding of flow previously would have been that when someone is good at what they're doing and they're doing it, and there's that sense of passion and meaning and goal, they're in the zone and it just happens.
Mhm.
So my question is, how much of that state can truly be engineered, and how much of that arises out of other causes and conditions? And maybe we can set some of those causes and conditions. I don't know if I can self-create a state of flow. I suppose that I can have clear goals, I can have passion, I can set a challenge that seems realistic, and as I entertain that, flow arises more naturally, so that I'm more passive in the experience than active.
You will never be passive in the experience of flow. You're always fully engaged.
Yeah, but it arises.
Actually,
I experience it. I don't force it. Maybe that's the better word. I just don't know what your science says about that.
I don't have that information. Like how much it can be, what is that, percentage? Or what? I don't have that information, so I can't answer that. But how I would answer it is that, let me see. In flow, is a cycle. So in the beginning, it doesn't look like flow. It's not like, it sounds like, and I think I'm wrong in this, that I did not go through that. But I said earlier that you need to have a certain level of skill to be able to get into flow, right? So the flow has a cycle. So number one, there's this skill acquisition phase, where that's where deliberate practice comes, where you're like you're gritting through it. Right? You're a skill acquisition phase. And number two is release. So you kind of need to let go and let your mind just let it marinate, whatever it is that you're learning. Let's say you're learning a new language, you're trying to, I don't know, like learning a new skill, whatever it is. You kind of want to walk around, or you're stomping into a problem, for example. you can't really solve the problem and you sit down, oh, I need to find an idea to solve. No. You kind of like put in a lot of things in your mind so that your mind can find a way to like get into pattern recognition phase. But how it gets there is you kind of need to let go, walk, release, and then wait. Where's my phone? Let's see. One second. So it's like, give me 1 second. Thank you. What's that? Okay. So there's struggle, release, flow, and recovery. So the struggle that I said is a skill acquisition phase. You're trying to acquire a new skill, like for me, rock climbing. Obviously, when I get into rock climbing, I have 0 skill level. But then I kind of like you want to fight against that struggle. Oh, I mean, you want to fight past the struggle. Once you kept fighting and fighting, then you kind of want to like let that get marinate in your mind. You walk away, you have like a sense of release where you relax, and then you can get into flow, and then you recover because flow is like a mentally and psychologically expensive state. So it's like this cycle. So I can't really answer your question directly, but that's how I would answer it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
No, go for it.
So is it a matter of like if you maybe previously to acquiring a skill, like you do something that's challenging and you're like, oh wait, I like this challenge, and so maybe by accident you enter flow, but then there is like this I guess the resistance part where it's like you're acquiring a new skill, maybe you can't enter full more like quickly, but then you get there and that's like kind of the cycle. So you kind of have to find something that you're drawn towards.
Yeah. So there has to be like a pull in the beginning, passion and curiosity that will allow you to stay in the struggle and get past the struggle. Because otherwise, if you're not into it, it's hard to get past the struggle. Yeah. All right. Anything else? Okay.
So I wonder if we are forced to complete the task that's over challenging our skill, do we still get a chance in the flow?
Say that again.
Like if we're forced to complete the task that's over challenging for me, I'm working a project that I think is really hard. Whenever I do it, I feel really anxious. So do I still get a chance to get into flow?
How can you break that challenge down where it's
Like separated to main parts.
If you have a 42K marathon, because you need to again like you need to increase the level of the challenge so that you don't stay the anxious part. So let's say you have a project that I don't know what your project is, but let's just use marathon. So in the beginning, 42K is this really high challenge. It's overwhelming. So you kind of want to break that down so you stay in the sweet spot between anxiety and boredom. Okay, maybe I'm just going to conquer 5 kilometers first. I'm going to go that over and over again. Bam, it's already embedded into my system. Now 5 kilometers is easy. Doesn't even get you into flow anymore. Now you have that skill level. This is challenge, this is skill, but it's already here. Now you need to raise the level of the challenge or complexity of the challenge. Now you need to raise to 10 kilometers. So 20 until you get 42K. It's not in the beginning. You look from the beginning. It's like, oh, 42K was so hard, but then you realize, oh wow, I broke that down. Or just as bite-sized goals that gives me like a win. It helps me gain momentum that naturally propels me forward instead of I need to push myself to do this and that. No, you change the narrative you change the narrative in your mind where like, no, I have control. I have control. What I can control is I can defy this goal where it still feels like I'm in flow. Does that help?
I think so. Thank you.
Okay, one last question. No? Okay, I think we're good. Thank you very much. Thank you for your questions, for your engagement of podcast album. If you want to have any more questions, you can look us up. Look me up at flow.insider. That's my Instagram. Or flowinsider.org. All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for joining the event, and thank you so much to organize everything. And then we in the like in the next 2 weeks, we will have more events about longevity, about the health and vitality. And this Friday, we will have Tai Chi morning 8 a.m. here. Richard, he is he learned Tai Chi more than 30 years. How? I'm sorry, summer. 30 years? Yeah, and so he will be our teacher. Now, welcome to join. And it's for free, yeah. And every Friday in this month, July, we will have the Tai Chi class. Okay. Thank you.